Story 1. My 5-year-old son can't speak yet. I was nervous about our first meeting with my mother-in-law, but the moment she touched my son's hand, she suddenly screamed, "Get away from him now." It all happened in that moment when their two hands touched. "Get away from this child right now," she cried out. And then my mother-in-law stared at her grandchild as if she had seen something terrifying. My son, Joseph, is 5 years old, but this is the first time he's meeting his grandmother, Patricia. As if an electric current had passed through her, Patricia quickly withdrew her hand. Of course, neither my husband nor I had any idea what was going on. What on earth did she mean by getting away from Joseph? They had just met for the first time, and I even thought it was terrible for her to say such a thing. My husband tried to calmly ask for a reason. "Mom, what's wrong? Did Joseph do something? Don't you two feel anything?" Patricia said, ignoring our panic. What could she be talking about? After letting out a short sigh, she said, "This child is currently the target of strong malice." Strong malice? My husband and I looked at each other. Who could be directing such malice? "I don't have any idea," I said. As I was mulling it over, my husband suddenly got up. When he returned after a while, he was holding a laptop. Could it be this person? He opened the laptop in front of Patricia and played one of the videos. Patricia stared intently at the screen. I thought she wouldn't be able to tell anything from this, but Patricia's eyes widened. It's this person. There's no doubt that this is the source of the malice. As I stood there dumbfounded, Patricia started muttering something. "My name is Ashley. I run a bakery with my husband, Pete, and today the shop is busy as usual. From early morning, we make sandwiches, arrange freshly baked bread, and do a quick clean in front of the store before opening. When opening time comes, customers arrive seeking freshly baked bread. While enjoying light conversation, we introduce seasonal recommended breads, and the customers' faces light up saying, 'That looks delicious.' Now we have more regular customers, and I'm very happy to be able to talk with them. I too was once just a customer visiting this bakery. As I frequented the place, I found myself attracted not only to the bread but also to the owner, Pete. That's how we started dating and decided to get married. When we got married, he said, 'Actually, I'm divorced. I divorced my ex-wife when I quit my job to start the bakery.' I felt that he must have very bitter memories as he spoke, seemingly forcing the words out. She said she didn't like the financial instability, but I chose to have my own shop. We talked and worried a lot about things like the possibility that he might prioritize the shop over family in the future, or that he might not be able to help much with child care, but we still decided to be together. 'It's okay, we'll definitely manage everything somehow,' I said, taking his hand and smiling. After that, we also went to greet my mother-in-law, Patricia, and we registered our marriage. Both Pete and I were full of happiness, believing we could overcome anything that might come our way. My mother-in-law, despite her advanced age, lives alone in the countryside separate from our home. According to Pete, Patricia is said to have strong spiritual sensitivity, so being around many people tires her out. I don't have any spiritual sensitivity and can't feel such things, so I don't really understand. But according to Patricia, sometimes it's happier not to be able to sense these things. So my mother-in-law has a desire to live in nature, and both my husband and I respect that opinion. Even if I'm not nearby, I'm always watching over you in my heart. That was Patricia's catchphrase. Though I found it a strange thing to say, somehow it made me feel reassured and dependable. My husband and I were blessed with a baby boy the year after we got married, and we named him Joseph. Watching our son grow day by day is the most joyous thing. Even the smallest daily changes make me want to take pictures of everything. There was a bit of loneliness as he gradually became more independent, but I suppose this is how he'll continue to grow up. By the time Joseph turned 5, he had become quite a talkative child. However, he occasionally says odd things. He would happily wave goodbye to people passing by, and then say things like this to people we met in the park. "Hey, someone's riding on you." This was to a person who always walks their dog in the park, but no one was riding on them. Also, while we were at the supermarket during checkout, he confused the cashier by asking, "Who are you piggybacking?" Joseph says these things with an innocent smile, which makes the other person look even more uncomfortable or puzzled. When I told my husband about this, he was very surprised. Maybe he's inherited Mom's gift. Maybe we shouldn't let him talk like that too much in public. We can't really control what he says at kindergarten, but we tried our best to not let him talk much outside. However, there's a limit to what you can do with a 5-year-old child. Our child has a somewhat mysterious air about him, even though he's our own. If he's inherited your mother's gift, couldn't we get some advice from her? Joseph has never met Patricia directly. When Joseph was born, there was a severe infectious disease going around. Now that seems to have settled down quite a bit, and we were thinking of consulting Patricia soon. While we were worrying about Joseph's chatter, we began to notice some changes in my husband's bakery as well. It wasn't that bread sales had improved or that it had become popular and interview requests were coming in. Sadly, defamatory posts began to appear on social media. There were bad reviews saying things like, "The bread is soggy," "The sandwiches smell bad," or "The owner's attitude is poor." This had Pete holding his head in his hands. We always serve freshly baked bread, so why? And was my attitude really that bad? He vented his frustrations while drinking a cold beer at night. Whether because of these posts or not, it seemed that customer traffic was declining. Of course, we also use social media to post about seasonal recommended breads and announce campaigns. And there were customers who came after seeing these posts, and we were gradually increasing our customer base until this happened. In this age of social media dominance, customers stopped wanting to visit shops based solely on online posts. It's not like we'll immediately have zero customers, but this isn't good if it continues. We wanted to turn things around somehow. One day, as I was cleaning in front of the store and preparing to open, I found a garbage bag placed in front of the shop. I picked it up, wondering what it could be. "What's this?" Praying it wasn't dangerous drugs or poison, I looked inside and found it was just ordinary household garbage. Why would someone dump ordinary household garbage here? Who would do such a thing? "Ashley, what's wrong? Did something happen?" Seeing me frozen in front of the store, my husband came over. When I told him about the dumped garbage, Pete looked puzzled for a moment, but he quickly smiled and said, "No need to worry about it. This is how we deal with this kind of thing," he said, throwing the garbage bag into the commercial trash bin behind the store. "Is it really nothing to worry about?" As my husband says. As I stared at the trash bin, I had a feeling that something bad was going to happen. A week later, garbage was dumped again. This time there were 3 bags, and the smell was terrible. Even Pete frowned at this as he threw the 3 garbage bags into the bin behind the store. He grumbled, "We're not a garbage dump." After that, garbage bags were dumped several more times, and just as we were getting fed up with it, other strange things started happening. For some reason, Joseph suddenly started crying at night and trembling in fear. "I'm scared." Joseph would wake up in the middle of the night, come to me, and start crying. This had never happened before, so why now? When I asked Joseph, "Did you have a scary dream?" he just shook his head and kept crying with his face buried against me. "Don't come here. Go away." Both Pete and I stayed with Joseph until he fell asleep that night. After Joseph had fallen asleep, my husband was drinking beer and deep in thought when he muttered, "If this keeps up, let's file a police report." However, we had already thrown away the garbage, and we hadn't heard of anyone seeing someone dumping it. There's also the problem of whether the police would take action without any evidence. After discussing it, we decided to install a small security camera outside the shop to monitor the situation. By this time, perhaps due to the defamatory posts on social media, customers had become sparse. Sales weren't coming in, and my husband seemed discouraged. I wondered how I could encourage him when he was so down. The only consolation was that our regular customers still believed in us. Let's cherish the people who care about us more than those who attack us. Your bread is the best in the world, right? Have confidence, I said, patting my husband on the shoulder. You're right. All right, shall we try some new menu items? As if his previous gloominess was a lie, Pete began to enthusiastically brainstorm bread ideas. His eyes were sparkling like a child engrossed in a craft project. I loved seeing that face of his back. When we first met, he would talk on every date about, "It would be nice if there was bread like this, or a spread like that." With a sense of nostalgia, multiple ideas scribbled on memos spread across our living room table. As if mocking our efforts, an incident occurred a week later. This time graffiti had been painted on the walls of our store. There was an illustration of a character I'd seen somewhere before, and next to it was written "nasty bread" and other such things. The troubling part was that these were painted with actual paint and didn't look easy to remove. People passing by were surprised and seemed shocked. Our store faces the street, so while there's a lot of foot traffic during the day, there's hardly anyone around at night. As a result, no one had seen the person who did this paint graffiti. Pete kept his mouth tightly shut, His face grim, he clenched his fists, frustration evident in his expression. I felt frustrated and helpless too. No matter how much they dislike my bread, there are things you should and shouldn't do. Although a figure was visible on the security camera, it was dark, and due to the camera angle, the face wasn't clearly visible. Pete decided to file a police report and have them investigate. When we find the culprit, they won't get off easy, Pete fumed. But strangely enough, after that, there were no more incidents of garbage dumping or graffiti. Perhaps the culprit noticed the security camera while they were in the middle of painting the graffiti. If so, it's possible that the same person was responsible for the garbage dumping as well. While the pranks had stopped, the defamatory posts online continued. Shortly after that, on a day when our shop was closed, Patricia called Pete. "The shop is closed today, right?" "Yes, but what's up? I became worried about you all. Can I come visit?" Both Pete and I were surprised. This was the first time my mother-in-law had asked to visit us on her own initiative. For some reason, I'm just terribly worried. The reason was mysterious, but we had no objections. When we told her that, Patricia took a series of trains to come to us. My mother-in-law arrived around 3 p.m., and my husband and I greeted her with a smile. Patricia was smiling too, holding a gift of sweets in her hands. This would be the first time she and Joseph met. Joseph isn't usually shy with strangers, but he was fidgeting a bit with Patricia. Maybe he sensed something. Seeing Joseph's behavior, Patricia smiled gently and said, "Hello, Joseph. I'm your grandmother." Joseph hid behind me, as if to say a stranger had come. He stared intently at Patricia, assessing the situation. "It's our first time meeting, isn't it? Oh, I have a gift for you." As she said this, my mother-in-law held out the sweets she was holding. Seeing the box of sweets, Joseph's eyes lit up. He happily said, "Ah," and reached out his hand. Because we had been cautioning Joseph not to speak much in front of others, he had stopped pronouncing words properly in front of anyone other than Pete and me. This habit came out even in front of Patricia. "I'm sorry, he still can't speak well," I hurriedly explained, as I always do to people outside. I felt ashamed and apologetic for giving the same explanation even in front of Patricia. I thought she might say, "He's 5 years old and still can't speak? What kind of education are you giving him?" But Patricia didn't seem to mind and handed the sweets to Joseph. It was at that moment when their two hands touched. As if an electric current had passed through her, Patricia quickly withdrew her hand. "Get away from this child right now," she cried out, and then stared at Joseph as if she had seen something terrifying. Of course, neither Pete nor I had any idea what was going on. What on earth did she mean by getting away from Joseph? It doesn't feel good to be told such a thing. I even thought it was terrible for her to say that. Why would she say such a thing? However, while flustered, we tried to calmly ask for a reason. "Mom, what's wrong? Did Joseph do something? Don't you two feel anything?" Patricia said, ignoring our panic. What could she be talking about? Looking at Joseph, touching him, talking to him. What is there to feel? Of course, we feel joy at his growth and happiness at having him nearby. But judging from Patricia's demeanor, that's not what she meant. She might be referring to something spiritual, but we completely clueless. "You two really are blessed," she said after letting out a short sigh. "This child is currently the target of strong malice." Strong malice? My husband and I looked at each other. Who could be directing such malice? I don't know who it's from, but it's malice from a woman. It's like a curse. Do you have any idea who it might be? Who could harbor such strong resentment? A kindergarten teacher? I'd like to think there's no such person among our friends or customers. As I was mulling it over, my husband suddenly got up. When he returned after a while, he was holding a laptop. Could it be this person? He opened the laptop in front of Patricia and clicked on one of the files. There were several security camera recordings saved there. He played the video showing the person who had done the paint graffiti, and Patricia stared intently at the screen. It was dark outside, and the person was wearing black clothes and a black cap, so their outline wasn't clear. They were small in stature, but that alone wasn't enough to determine if it was a woman. I thought she wouldn't be able to tell anything from this, but Patricia's eyes widened. "It's this person. There's no doubt that this is the source of the malice." As I stood there dumbfounded, Patricia started muttering something. "Isn't this Sarah? Sarah? Her?" Pete looked at Patricia with disbelief. "Who is this Sarah?" "It's my ex-wife." "Why now of all times? How do you know this person is Sarah?" "I can tell by her aura." I felt as if I had stepped into a drama. So these things really do happen. I was so stunned that I couldn't close my mouth. Patricia took a small scented bag out of her purse and handed it to Joseph. It had a sweet smell. This is a charm. It will deflect the malice, so keep it with you. I was skeptical internally, wondering if such a thing would really work, but Joseph held the scented bag up to his eye level and nodded very seriously. After that, we chatted with Patricia about recent events and had some tea. During this time, Joseph remained silent, tightly gripping the scented bag and not letting go. A few days later, the situation took a sudden turn. Within days of my mother-in-law's visit, we received a call from the police. According to the police officer in charge, they had identified the culprit behind the paint graffiti and the defamatory posts on social media. After ending the call, my husband said dejectedly, "As expected, the culprit was Sarah." Both Pete and I were shocked. It was now confirmed that the person captured on the security camera was indeed Sarah, just as Patricia had said. But why would she do such nasty things to this store? From what I'd heard from Pete, Sarah had married another man after divorcing him. That man was supposed to be wealthy, so it didn't seem likely that she would still have lingering feelings for Pete or his store. I don't understand either. Anyway, I'll talk to you properly about it tonight. Since the call came during the day, we focused on running the store. I couldn't help but think about Pete's ex-wife. Maybe she was trying to break up our family. Such thoughts crossed my mind. It was a relief that I could temporarily forget about Sarah while serving customers. That night, after Joseph had gone to bed, Pete told me what he had heard from the police. Sarah and her husband couldn't have children. Sarah had apparently confessed about herself during the police questioning. She had apparently been undergoing fertility treatments but couldn't conceive, and her relationship with her in-laws had become strained, being told things like, "When are you going to have a child?" or, "You're a useless wife." Sarah gradually lost her confidence. Being told such things must have been incredibly stressful for her. Around that time, Sarah apparently learned through the grapevine that Pete had gotten married. Pete guessed that a mutual friend must have told her. From that friend, Sarah must have also heard about our son. Unable to have a child herself and going through such a hard time, she couldn't understand why Pete was happy, and she unilaterally built up resentment that led to her actions. That's just plain jealousy. To think that for just that reason she had been writing defamatory posts and vandalizing with paint graffiti. It's terrifying to think that someone could be so envious and hateful at the same time. I felt a little sorry for her. Surely Sarah too wanted to have a child and live happily with her partner. It's not really anyone's fault. Whether or not one can conceive a child is, as they say, known only to God. I feel sorry for Sarah, but we've been inconvenienced too. The cost of removing the graffiti and the damage from the defamation are significant. My husband declared that he would properly claim compensation from her, just as he had said he would. I'm sure Joseph was scared too. As he said this, he downed his beer in one go. That's right. Joseph too had been the target of this one-sided malice to the point where it was called a curse. I can't forgive this either. If Patricia hadn't come, Joseph would probably still be afraid and unable to sleep. Thanks to the scented bag, Joseph can now sleep as he did before. The faintly sweet scent seems to be calming Joseph down. If there was anything to worry about, it was whether there would be retaliation from Sarah or if we would be cursed even more. When I consulted Patricia about this, she surprisingly laughed and said, "There's no need to worry about that." Why not? Once you curse someone, you receive many times that curse in return. So Sarah would soon have the curse returned to her, and she wouldn't be able to curse Joseph anymore. I had very little involvement with these kinds of things, so I gave a rather flat response. In any case, if nothing else happens, that's for the best. We found a trustworthy lawyer and filed a claim for damages against Sarah for this incident. We didn't know how she would react. Maybe the defamation and vandalism of the store would get even worse than before. It was terrifying to think that it might not stop at just graffiti. While we were watching the situation with such anxieties, surprisingly the compensation was paid immediately. According to Pete's friend, Sarah's husband and his family apparently put up the money. Whether it's because they're the type to care about how others see them or not, they seem to have dealt with it promptly, fearing scandal. Since then, there have been no defamatory posts on social media or pranks on the store. We breathed a sigh of relief. Also, we heard that Sarah and her husband divorced after this incident. Apparently, Sarah's husband and his parents couldn't tolerate her behavior. They probably couldn't forgive her for defaming and vandalizing the store of her divorced ex-husband. Shortly after, Sarah was hospitalized. Whether it was for mental illness or some other ailment, that's not clear. I even think that, as Patricia said, some sort of curse might have rebounded on her. There's a saying about karma, and I guess this is what it means. If you hold a grudge against someone, it comes back to you. Even for someone like me who can't sense spiritual things, this became a chance to believe in it a little. We've started to listen to our sons out of the blue chatter without being confused. As for Patricia, she ended up moving in with our family. Given her advanced age, we were uneasy about letting her live alone. At first, my mother-in-law was hesitant, but Pete succeeded in persuading her. For the first few days after moving into our house, she seemed unsettled, but after a week she appeared to have adjusted. "I wonder if I can manage in a bakery where so many people gather," she had said. But now, as if those words were a lie, Patricia relaxed in the back of the bakery. According to her, the customers are all good people, and she doesn't sense any malice. That's why she can spend her time peacefully. By the way, my mother-in-law had another hidden talent. She could apparently predict the near future of people or animals she met. It seems to be something like fortune-telling, and she says she can tell by seeing their aura. "If you try to see, you can see it," she says, laughing like a witch. When my mother-in-law whimsically told something to a regular customer, it actually came true. "Mother-in-law, what exactly did you tell them?" "You see that girl in the suit over there? I told her she's about to get a promotion, so she shouldn't quit her job and should keep working hard." Indeed, that woman is a regular customer who always buys sandwiches to go. She might be in sales, as she always carried a bag full of documents. But lately, I had noticed she looked down. A few days later, she came skipping to Patricia just as Patricia had said she had really been promoted. That's not all. To a person who stopped by the store while walking their dog, she said, "Your dog is suffering, so take it to the hospital." The owner was puzzled, but the next day the dog started suffering, and a disease was really discovered, surprising both the owner and me. After several such incidents, Patricia quietly became popular as the fortune-telling grandmother. But it's troublesome if too many people gather. I'll just talk occasionally. So my mother-in-law's fortune-telling became a special menu item only for regular customers. Perhaps because of this, the store regained its prosperity. Seasonal menu items are increasing daily. Pete is bringing to life the ideas he had been jotting down one after another. Meanwhile, Joseph has regained his energy and returned to being a talkative child. Having Patricia nearby and playing with him is probably a big factor. "Grandma, there's someone over there." As expected, he points to empty spaces and speaks. Patricia responds to each of Joseph's observations. She teaches him to distinguish between living things and non-living things. It feels like Joseph's ability is gradually becoming controllable. As he spends time with Patricia, he no longer suddenly points at empty spaces when we go out. Even the cashier at the supermarket we often visit now smiles at him. Seeing Joseph chatting happily with everyone, both Pete and I feel relieved. I think these ordinary days will continue like this from now on, and I believe that no matter what difficulties arise, we can. Story 2. Walking along the beach with my 8-year-old daughter after shopping, she suddenly pushed me into the ocean. I managed to swim back to shore and returned home soaking wet. Then the phone rang, revealing a shocking truth. It was, "My name is Sarah Johnson, and I'm 35 years old. I live in a small coastal town in California with my husband, Michael, and our 8-year-old daughter, Emily." At first glance, our family might seem peaceful and happy, but the truth is, we're not. I have a big worry in my daily life. The source of my worry is my mother-in-law, Martha. Martha lives about a 15-minute drive from our house and visits us 3 or 4 times a week. At first, I thought she was coming to see her granddaughter, Emily, but that wasn't the case. Martha's real purpose was to bully me. Martha is a perfectionist, especially when it comes to housework. She doesn't tolerate any compromise. Every time she comes, she checks the whole house in detail, and if she finds even a speck of dust or dirt, she severely scolds me. "Sarah, you're the housewife here. Why isn't the cleaning up to par? Look at this. There's dust on top of the shelves. This is going to be a bad influence on Emily." Martha's words always deeply hurt me. I'm doing my best every day to balance work and housework, but it seems that Martha doesn't see that at all. What's especially painful is when she criticizes me in front of Emily. "Emily, your mother can't clean properly. It's a shame you have to grow up in such a dirty house. The dirt in a room reflects the dirt in one's heart. Your mother's heart must be very dirty." Every time I hear words like these, I feel so sorry for Emily. At the same time, I think about talking to my husband, Michael, but I can't quite bring myself to do it. One day, I finally worked up the courage to talk to Michael. Hey, about your mother. Can you ask her to stop coming every day and bullying me? Michael's response was unexpected. What are you talking about? Mom is coming for your sake. She's teaching you how to clean. Shouldn't you be grateful? I was shocked. My husband doesn't see any problem with his mother's behavior at all. In fact, he says I should be grateful. But I clean hard every day? Your mother is just looking for dust on purpose. If there's dust, doesn't that mean your cleaning is insufficient? I couldn't argue anymore. My husband is completely on his mother's side. As days like this continued, I gradually lost confidence. I started to feel like nothing was going right, whether it was housework or my job, and I began to feel like I was a worthless person. The only comfort is my daughter, Emily. She seems to understand how I feel and sometimes says things like this. Mom, don't mind what Grandma says. You always clean nicely. Mom, your heart is clean. What Grandma says is wrong. Emily's words are a great comfort to me, but at the same time, it pains me that such a young child has to worry about me. Martha's bullying continued, and I kept losing confidence day by day. Emily's kindness was my only support, but even that didn't change the situation. One Saturday afternoon, I went shopping at the local supermarket with Emily. It was rare not to have a visit from Martha that day, and I felt a bit relieved. Emily also showed a cheerful expression after a long time, which made my heart feel a little lighter. After finishing our shopping, we were walking home along the seaside promenade as usual. The gentle California sea breeze was caressing our hair, and in the distance, waves were shimmering in the light of the setting sun. It was a scene that usually calmed my heart, but on this day, I felt something was off. Emily was unusually quiet. Normally, she would frolic while looking at the sea or pick up seashells, but on this day, she was just walking silently. Emily, are you okay? I asked, and Emily just nodded slightly. We approached a slightly elevated rocky area on the promenade. From here, we were closer to the sea, and the sound of the waves was louder. Suddenly, Emily stopped. Mom, I'm sorry. With those words, I was pushed hard by Emily. Losing my balance, I fell from the rocky area into the sea. Emily, before I could even scream, I was engulfed by the cold seawater. My mind went blank for a moment, unable to comprehend what had just happened. The salty taste of seawater spread in my mouth, and feeling water enter my nose, I hurriedly surfaced, coughing violently. I desperately looked around. I could see Emily on top of the rocky area. She seemed to be crying, but I couldn't see clearly. Emily, help me! I shouted, but Emily didn't move from her spot. I was about to panic, but somehow I managed to regain my composure. Fortunately, the sea was relatively calm, and I could swim. I started swimming desperately towards the shore. The cold seawater enveloped my entire body, and my clothes were getting heavier. My arms and legs were gradually getting tired, but I kept swimming desperately. Why would Emily do such a thing? As I swam, my head was full of this question. I couldn't believe that Emily had pushed me. She was always such a kind child who protected me. I finally reached the shore. As I crawled onto the sandy beach, I felt like all my strength was about to leave me. Breathing heavily, I looked back, but Emily was no longer there. Emily, I whispered her name, but there was no response. I stood up, soaking wet and shivering. It seems I lost the shopping bags when I fell into the sea. Feeling at a loss, I started walking unsteadily, thinking I had to get home anyway. My mind was in confusion. I couldn't understand the reason for Emily's action, and I was filled with a mix of fear and sadness. Why? Why would Emily do such a thing? Repeating this question, I hurried home still soaking wet. I opened the front door and stumbled inside, where silence enveloped me. Emily was nowhere to be seen. Emily? Emily, where are you? I called out, my voice strained, but there was no answer. Anxiety and confusion dominated my heart as I began to take off my wet clothes with trembling hands. Just then, the phone started ringing. I hurriedly picked up the receiver. Hello? Mom, I'm sorry. A small voice came from the other end of the line. It was Emily's voice. She sounded like she was crying. Emily, where are you? Why did you do that? My voice was shaking, a mix of anger and worry. Mom, listen. Emily's voice was serious. I wanted to save you. Save me? How is pushing me into the sea saving me? Emily took a deep breath and started talking. Mom, I overheard Grandma's plan. She's trying to kill you. I gasped. What? What are you saying? I heard Grandma talking on the phone. She's after your life insurance money. I was speechless at Emily's words. Martha is trying to kill me? It was unbelievable. But Emily, why did you push me into the sea? We could have talked about this. Emily answered in a small voice. Mom, Grandma was planning to put poison in your dinner tomorrow, but I thought if I just talked about it, you wouldn't believe me. I was shocked by Emily's words. Indeed, considering Martha, I might not have believed it if I had just heard about it. So I thought if I made it look like you had an accident, it would thwart Grandma's plan. If you survived and came back from the sea, Grandma wouldn't be able to carry out her plan. Emily's voice was trembling. Mom, I'm really sorry, but I wanted to protect you. As I listened to Emily's words, various emotions welled up inside me. Fear, sadness, and deep love for my daughter, Emily. I understand how you feel, but it was a very dangerous thing to do. What if I had drowned? I know. I'm sorry, but I knew you were a strong person. Emily's words made me unable to stop my tears. Emily, where are you now? At a friend's house. Come home right away. Let's think about what to do next together. After hanging up the phone, I fell into deep thought. Martha's plan, Emily's actions, and what we should do next. My head was in confusion, but there was one thing for certain. I had to protect Emily, and I had to find a way out of this situation no matter what. I heard the sound of the front door opening, and Emily came back. We exchanged a long embrace and started to make plans for what to do next. When Emily came back, we hugged for a long time. Feeling Emily's small body trembling in my arms, I couldn't stop my tears. Emily, I'm so sorry. I made you carry such a heavy burden, I said while gently stroking Emily's hair. Emily looked up at me, her eyes wet with tears. Mom, I should be the one apologizing. I put you in danger. I gently wiped Emily's cheeks and took a deep breath. Emily, you were trying to protect me. I'm very touched by your courage and love, but from now on, let's think of safer ways, okay? Emily nodded slightly. At that moment, I felt my daughter's growth and strength, and my heart swelled with emotion. Mom, what are we going to do now? In response to Emily's question, I thought for a moment before answering. First, we need to have a proper talk with Grandma, but before that, we need evidence. We talked late into the night, making plans. I was moved many times by Emily's courage and wisdom. The next morning, I decided to take action to improve my relationship with Martha with renewed determination. First, with Emily's help, we decided to record Martha's phone conversations. A few days later, when Martha came to our house, I greeted her trying to appear calm despite my nervousness. Martha, let's have a good talk today. Martha looked puzzled but sat down in the living room. Martha, I understand how you feel about me, but we can't leave our relationship like this. Martha tried to speak, but I raised my hand to stop her. Please listen. I am your son's wife and Emily's mother. We are family, but your actions are trying to destroy our family. Martha's face turned pale. What are you saying? Emily overheard your phone conversation about targeting my life insurance money. Martha seemed at a loss for words. I played the recording, revealing Martha's plan. Why would you do this? I asked, tears in my eyes. After a long silence, Martha broke down crying. I was just lonely. After Michael married you, I felt like I lost my place. I took Martha's hand. Martha, you are an important member of this family, but actions that hurt us are not acceptable. Martha looked up and met my eyes. I'm truly sorry. Can you forgive me? I forgive you. But from now on, let's make an effort to respect and understand each other. From that day on, we gradually started to repair our relationship. Martha began receiving psychological counseling, and I participated in family therapy. Emily also slowly rebuilt her relationship with Martha. Martha was impressed by Emily's courage and wisdom and deepened her bond with her granddaughter. A few months later, we went on a family picnic by the sea. Martha brought homemade sandwiches, and Emily was having fun collecting seashells. As I listened to the sound of the waves, I looked around at my family. We might not be perfect yet, but we were definitely moving forward. Through this experience, I learned the importance of family bonds and understanding each other, and above all, I felt deep gratitude for Emily's love and courage. A year has passed since our picnic by the sea. Since that day, The bonds of our family have been deepening slowly but surely. Martha now accompanies Emily to her piano lessons once a week. Gone is her former strictness. Instead, she gently applauds Emily's performances, which warms my heart. My relationship with Martha has also changed significantly. Every Sunday, we attend a cooking class together. At first, we were tense, but now we can laugh and point out each other's mistakes. Michael has also noticed the change in our family and has started actively making time for family on holidays. At our recent family meeting, we all made plans for next month's vacation together. Emily is brighter and more confident than before. "Mom, I baked cookies with Grandma," she reports happily, and I can't help but feel joy. Tonight, our whole family is gathered in the living room watching a movie. The scent of popcorn made by Martha wafts through the room, and Emily's laughter echoes. As I lean on Michael's shoulder, I suddenly think, this is what a real family is: overcoming difficulties, understanding each other, and supporting one another. Not perfect, but filled with love. Emily holds my hand and asks, "Mom, are you happy?" I smiled and answered, "Yes, I'm very happy being together with everyone." At this moment, I felt truly happy from the bottom of my heart. There may still be challenges ahead, but with these strong bonds, I believe we can overcome any problem. Story 3. I was reading a picture book to my 5-year-old niece at my in-laws' house. She pointed at a scary picture and said, "This is Mommy." I rushed to the attic, filled with dread. What I found there revealed a shocking truth. That's Mommy. It happened on the night we visited my husband's family home. As I was reading a picture book to her, my 5-year-old niece suddenly pointed at a picture. It was a terrifying image. Could it be? I rushed up to the attic, and there I found my sister-in-law in a terribly changed state. She showed no signs of breathing, and I began to shake uncontrollably with fear. Surely my niece had been trying to tell me about this somehow. It was absolutely unforgivable. While suppressing my rising anger, I set out on a path of revenge. I married Charles, who's the same age as me, 2 years ago. He's a wonderful man who takes the initiative with housework in place of me since my work is busy and irregular. "I want to support you as you work for those in need," he'd say. I was so grateful to him. Because we lead such busy lives, we don't have children yet. We both love kids, so we often said it would be nice if we could have one soon, but the timing never seemed right. "Let's take it slow," he'd say. Yes, but I still find myself wanting a cute little girl like Emma. I feel the same way. Emma is Charles's brother's daughter, our adorable 5-year-old niece. Charles's brother, Damien, had taken over the family farming business and lived with his wife, Carrie, daughter Emma, and Damien's parents, a family of 5. Their house was in a rural town far from ours, so we couldn't visit often. We'd stay for a few days, maybe once a year. The in-laws seemed busy coordinating produce from neighboring farms, so that frequency seemed about right. Damien and his wife were easygoing, and my in-laws were kind, so I always looked forward to our visits. More than anything, our niece eagerly anticipated our visits. Carrie, my sister-in-law, was close to my age, and we got along well. As an only child, she was like a real sister to me, someone I could talk to about anything. We kept in constant contact. "Look," Carrie sent another picture of Emma. "She's so cute." "Really?" "Forward it to me too." We always had exchanges like this. Needless to say, when a video call came in, my husband and I would fight over the phone. However, at some point, Carrie stopped responding to my messages. I became worried that something might have happened to her. When Charles came home from work, I rushed to him. "Carrie's not replying to my messages. Do you think something's wrong? Maybe she's just busy. It's harvest time for the crops. I hope that's all it is, but this has never happened before." I can't help but worry. At first, my husband didn't think much of it, but seeing my concerned face, he immediately called Damien. It turned out that Carrie was bedridden with illness. Worried, I told my husband I wanted to speak directly with Damien and asked him to pass the phone. "Is Carrie all right? What are her symptoms? Am I concerned for her?" I fired off questions one after another. Damien sighed heavily on the other end of the line. "Hey, don't you think it's a bit much to pry into other people's family matters? Please don't worry about it too much." He ended the call abruptly without answering my questions. What's gotten into Damien? I was surprised by his brusque attitude, so unlike his usual easygoing self. However, I also realized I might have been wrong to ask such probing questions. Still, I couldn't get Carrie out of my mind and thought about visiting them, but my work schedule was full, so I couldn't go. In the end, I hoped I'd be able to see her looking well when we visited next. Several weeks passed, and I visited Charles's family home with him. We hadn't heard from Carrie since then, and we were worried that her condition might be quite serious. "Brother, where's Carrie?" "She's not here right now." As we wondered what that meant, Charles's mother informed us that Carrie was in the hospital. We were both stunned by this news, which confirmed our fears. "I'd like to visit Carrie in the hospital." "Well, you see, they're not allowing visitors other than immediate family." I almost asked if her condition was really that bad, but I felt it might be inappropriate to say that, so I swallowed my words. Another concern was our niece, Emma. Usually full of energy, she was unusually quiet. Thinking she must be anxious without her mother around, I hoped we could do some fun things together to cheer her up during our stay. Just then, as my husband and I were putting our luggage in our room, Emma came running up to us quietly. What is it? Do you want to talk about something?" Emma had come close to me, but was fidgeting for some reason. She must be nervous after not seeing us for a while. However, she was looking at me intently, as if she wanted to say something. Just as she was about to open her mouth, Damien came hurrying over. "Emma, Miranda and Charles are tired, so go play over there." "We're fine." "Really?" I replied, but Damien said, No, we're intruding," and forcibly took Emma away. Even though we're family, I didn't want them to be so considerate, but maybe this was Damien's way of being kind. However, this same interaction kept repeating, and I couldn't even have a proper conversation with Emma. Not only Damien, but the grandparents were also acting fidgety, clearly different from their usual selves. They usually say, "Stay as long as you like," but this time they were saying things like, "When are you going home?" or "Don't you have work to do?" It was as if they didn't want us in the house. Something feels off. This is strange. I started to feel uncomfortable and became suspicious of their behavior. My husband felt the same way, tilting his head and saying, "Something's different from usual, isn't it?" Then, as we were relaxing after dinner, Emma came to me again. "I want to sleep with you." However, once again Damien came chasing after her and picked her up to take her away. "Didn't I tell you not to bother them?" "No. I'll go right to sleep after she reads me a story, please." I approached Emma, who looked like she was about to cry in Damien's arms. "Damien, you don't need to worry about us." "Emma, it's okay. Let's go to your room." "Which storybook do you want to read?" Damien didn't seem entirely convinced, but when I said, "It'll just be for a little while," he replied, "I see," and agreed. Emma's face brightened, and she pulled my hand, guiding me to her room. "I want this book read." As I was reading the picture book Emma had handed me, she suddenly pointed to a picture. "This is Mommy." It was a beautiful princess, and I felt touched thinking that's how she saw Carrie. "Your mommy is beautiful, isn't she?" "That's not what I mean." She seemed like she wanted to say something more, but then fell silent, so I couldn't quite understand what she meant. After finishing the book, as I was tucking Emma in, she sadly whispered, "I want to see Mommy," and then fell asleep. When I returned to the living room where everyone was, Damien and his mother were waiting for me as if they had been anticipating my return. They made me sit down. "Did Emma say anything?" "No, nothing in particular. She fell asleep right after I read her the story." When I said this, Damien seemed to show a relieved expression. After that, his mother whispered something to Damien, then looked at me and smiled, saying, "Thank you. Well, now that Emma's asleep, let's have some adult time." My husband, Damien, and the grandparents started drinking, and it turned into a party atmosphere. By the time night had fallen deeply, they had all fallen into a deep sleep. I went to Emma's room to check on her, and she was sound asleep. As I gazed at her with a warm feeling, I couldn't help but think about her behavior before she went to sleep. I picked up the picture book we had read earlier and flipped through the pages. When I came across the picture she had pointed to, I realized its horrifying nature. Could it be? No, it couldn't be, but I have to make sure. Before I knew it, my body was moving faster than my thoughts, and I found myself running up the stairs leading to the attic. When I opened the door, the sight that greeted me left me speechless. There lying in a terribly emaciated state was Carrie, the very person we had been told was in the hospital. "Carrie." I rushed to her and shook her body while calling out to her, but there was no response at all. What should I do? Seeing Carrie's condition where I couldn't even tell if she was breathing, I was severely shaken, but I quickly woke up my sleeping husband. At first, Charles was quite shocked, but he helped me carry Carrie to the car and drive her to the hospital without alerting Damon or his parents. However, when we arrived at the hospital, I overheard the doctor mutter, "I hope we can save her," and I couldn't stop shaking with anger and sadness. There's no doubt that Damien and his parents were involved in Carrie ending up like this. It also explained why they had been so fidgety since we arrived. After consulting with my husband, I decided to start gathering evidence so they couldn't deny their actions. The next morning while we were eating breakfast, Charles suggested to everyone, "I'd like to take Emma to the new shopping mall. Why don't you all come along?" But apart from Emma, the response was lukewarm. The grandmother and Damien seemed to be exchanging glances as if signaling each other with their eyes. "We're fine. You and Miranda can take Emma." "Yes, please do." In the end, neither Damien nor the grandparents were keen on going. However, my husband insisted, "It doesn't make sense unless the whole family goes out together," and they reluctantly agreed to come along. As everyone was getting into the car, I took out my smartphone from my pocket. "Sorry, I got a work call. Please go ahead without me. I'll catch up later." Ignoring their surprised looks, my husband stuck his face out the window and said, "Got it." He locked the car doors and slowly drove off. Damien and his parents seemed to think it was a bad idea to leave me alone in the house, and I could see them frantically trying to tell Charles something in the car. They were probably saying, "Come back right now." However, my husband drove on with a straight face, completely ignoring them, and the car quickly disappeared from sight. Grateful to Charles, I began searching the house to punish them. One unbelievable thing after another came to light, and I trembled with anger. I can't forgive this. I decided to take action for Carrie's sake. In the evening, my husband returned with the family. Emma seemed to have fallen asleep from exhaustion and was being carried by my husband. "I'll put Emma to bed. I'm also tired from driving, so I'll rest a bit." Saying this, Charles went into Emma's room. As I was watching him go, my mother-in-law came up to me. "Miranda, why didn't you come? We were waiting for you the whole time." "I'm sorry, a big job came up unexpectedly." "Oh my, that must have been tough. By the way, did anything unusual happen? Were you in the living room the whole time?" She kept asking me where I had been and what I had been doing while I was alone in the house. Meanwhile, Damon went up to the attic. Then, with loud footsteps, he came running back to his parents in a great hurry. "This is bad. We can't talk here. Let's go over there." Seeing Damien's face and realizing something was seriously wrong, his parents took him to a place away from me. Then they began whispering in low voices, occasionally glancing in my direction. Wondering what was going on, I rushed over to them. "Is something wrong?" "Miranda, you didn't go to the attic, did you?" my mother-in-law asked quietly with a furrowed brow. So I looked straight at her. "Not today, no." "Oh, but I did yesterday. Was that not allowed?" I deliberately said it in a provocative way. This seemed to strike a nerve with them, and they raised their voices, completely changing their attitude. "What the hell do you think you're doing? Where did you take Carrie? She was locked up there, but now she's gone. You helped her escape, didn't you?" Damien approached me shouting in rage. "That's right. Tell us where she is right now." Their stern expressions as they berated me clearly showed how panicked they were to leave her in such a miserable state. I took her to the hospital, but it might have been too late. As I choked up with frustration, in stark contrast, Damon smirked and said in a low voice, "So she's finally gone to the other world, huh? What on earth were you thinking? That's none of your business, right?" "Mom?" "That's right, Miranda. What are you talking about? Carrie's been in the hospital all along, hasn't she?" They were now trying to play innocent as if our previous exchange had never happened. I sighed and then glared at them without backing down an inch. "What do you make of this?" I thrust a photo in front of them. It was a picture of Carrie lying down, chained up with heavy shackles. Seeing the photo, Damien and his parents didn't answer, just averting their eyes. "It was you who did such a horrible thing to her, wasn't it?" When I pressed them, Damon heaved a big sigh and scratched his head vigorously. "Don't misunderstand. She went to the attic on her own." Damien made this ridiculous excuse with a straight face, and his parents nodded vigorously. I couldn't help but smile. Really? Did they really think I would believe such words? Thinking that continuing this conversation wouldn't lead anywhere, I decided to play my next hand. "This is the reason, isn't it?" I slid a document across the table, and Damon picked it up, his eyes widening. "How did you get this?" "We couldn't find it anywhere." It was a document showing some financial transactions with Carrie's handwriting, asking, "The flow is strange. Where did this difference go?" I had found this hidden in Emma's bookshelf while searching the house while my husband had taken them out. Let me rephrase the question. This is evidence of your fraud, isn't it? When I pressed him again, Damien crumpled up the document and took it to the kitchen. Then he set it on fire and burned it. Too bad. Look, now there's nothing left. He waved his hands at me mockingly. After that, he came back, put his elbows on the table, and looked at me with a face that seemed to say, "I've got you now." It's Carrie's fault for finding out what we were hiding. Feeling relieved now that the evidence was gone, Damien started talking freely. It turned out that the in-laws who coordinated with nearby farms were buying produce cheaply, but actually selling it to retailers at much higher prices. They were pocketing the difference as their own profit. Carrie must have noticed this and confronted Damien about what was going on. Carrie has a strong sense of justice. Once she knew, she couldn't just leave it alone, could she? That's right. I told her to keep quiet, but she wouldn't listen and said she was going to tell the other farmers. Even so, to lock her up in the attic to silence her? I was shocked by their excessive actions and way of thinking. As I listened silently for a while, they kept bad-mouthing Carrie one-sidedly and asserting that they were in the right. I was dumbfounded watching them. My mother-in-law, who was standing next to me, quietly gave Damien a meaningful look. But it doesn't feel good to have the house searched, you know. That's right. City girls have no manners. Now that you know, you're going to the attic too. Saying this, Damien suddenly lunged at me. Just then, the living room door opened, and Charles rushed to my side. Don't interfere. This is to protect our home. You were born and raised here too, so you should understand, right? Damien tried to forcibly do something to me, while Charles desperately tried to protect me. Charles grabbed Damien by the collar and shouted, "That's enough." Actually, I had already sent a message to my husband detailing everything I had discovered. That's why I had asked him to pretend to be resting after returning from shopping until the three of them revealed their true nature. It's too late now. I've already started preparing to sue you. With my words, Damien, who had been grappling with Charles, suddenly loosened his grip. The document from earlier was a copy, and I've safely stored the original. I've also saved it as data, so whatever you do is pointless. You're too clever for your own good. I don't want to hear that from you. Oh, take a look at these two. I held out several different photos in front of him. They showed Damien and his parents indulging in luxury at high-end restaurants, and in what's this? These are just photos of family meals and trips, aren't they? Well, that's how it might look if you only saw these. But what if we add this? I thrust another paper right under Damien's nose, a receipt. That's right, this is a problem, isn't it? Surprisingly, the description on the receipt said entertainment expenses, and it was addressed to an agricultural corporation that they had formed with the neighboring farms. It seems Carrie found this too. This is what you'd call embezzlement, right? Damien bit his lip and slammed his fist on the table. To think he had such a hidden side. I was shocked and thinking about how Charles must feel. An indescribable frustration welled up inside me. I informed them that I had already told the corporation members about this, and that we would set up a formal meeting to discuss it later. Since I've been asked to handle this, of course I'll be in charge. You don't stand a chance. I smirked and pulled a badge out of my pocket, holding it up in front of them. You see, I'm actually a lawyer. Of course, my in-laws knew that this was my job. Perhaps that's why they took the extreme action of locking Carrie in the attic, worried that she might tell me. Please don't do this. We're family, aren't we? That's right. Let's continue to build a good relationship. Even my father-in-law was pleading with me, but I couldn't overlook their wrongdoing, so I absolutely refused to nod. Frustrated with my stance, they asked how I had known to go to the attic. Emma told me. That brat. I told her so sternly not to tell anyone. She didn't say anything directly. She just gave me a hint. Huh. What nonsense are you talking about? The family must have threatened Emma, telling her, if you tell anyone, you'll never see Mommy again. Emma had kept her promise, but she wanted to somehow help her mom, so after thinking hard, she tried to let me know using the picture book. The picture she pointed to was of a princess captured by a devil and locked in an attic. I was amazed at how clever she was even at just 5 years old. When I explained this, they fell silent. I then played a video on my smartphone for them to see. It showed Carrie in a hospital bed testifying about what had happened. Huh? Why didn't she die? They were so surprised their mouths hung open. The truth is, when we took her to the hospital, although she was in terrible condition, she regained consciousness thanks to the doctor's dedicated treatment. There I heard the whole story from the beginning. and Carrie also expressed her desire to punish Damon and his parents. We didn't give her any food, so how she's too stubborn. The mother-in-law and father-in-law also looked puzzled. Actually, Emma played a big part in this too. That damn kid again. It turns out that Emma had been secretly going to her mother when the family wasn't looking, giving her water and food. What a kind and clever child. So devoted to her mother. I had no idea. They were surprised and lost for words. There's more to the video, please watch. As I played the rest of the video, Carrie firmly stated her intention to divorce Damien and file a complaint about this incident. You're a lawyer, can't you work something out where family help us out? That's right, please try to persuade Carrie too. Their pleas were pitiful. My husband watching this had a pained expression on his face. I'll be handling this case as well, so be prepared. When I coldly rejected them, they muttered, no way, and hung their heads on the spot. After that, the in-laws were formally sued by the neighboring farms. They settled by paying each household a lump sum for the difference in sales up to that point. Carrie filed a complaint with the police about the terrible treatment she received, and Damien and his parents were questioned and had to face the consequences of their actions. Carrie demanded $50,000 in damages and medical expenses from them and divorced Damien. Needless to say, she got custody of Emma and demanded an additional $80,000 in child support. Damien and his parents had to sell their house and land to pay for all this, and having lost everything, they came crying to us. We're cutting ties. We'll never have anything to do with you again. My husband coldly rejected them. They trudged away, and we don't know what became of them after that. Carrie and Emma seem to be living happily back at Carr's parents' home. We still keep in touch with them, and we're always cheered up by cute little Emma. When the baby in your tummy is born, please play with them. As it turns out, I found out I was pregnant after all this happened, and Emma is looking forward to the baby's birth too. I plan to work right up until just before the delivery. As a lawyer who can help people in trouble, I want to keep doing my best. Story 4. During the funeral of my daughter, who died suddenly from illness, my 5-year-old granddaughter, with a mysterious gift, said, "Mommy wants you to check her tummy." When I did, I found, and then. I'm Martha Wilson, and I turned 65 this spring. I've been living in Maple Grove, a small town in Ohio, for over 40 years. My husband, George, passed away 10 years ago, and since then, my only daughter, Jennifer, and my granddaughter, Emily, have been the light of my life. Jennifer was 27 years old. She worked as a teacher at the local elementary school. Her smile was as bright as the sun, warmly illuminating those around her. Emily is 5 years old. She has big blue eyes, just like Jennifer, and a curious personality. Last month, Jennifer fell ill. At first, we thought it was just a cold, but day by day her symptoms worsened: loss of appetite, severe abdominal pain, and unexplained fever. Neither the town clinic nor the big hospital could figure out the cause, and last Thursday my beloved daughter breathed her last. It was too sudden, too young a death. The doctors say it was an acute illness of unknown cause, but a big question remained in my heart. Why so suddenly? Why my sweet daughter? As I prepare for the funeral, my heart feels crushed with sadness, but I have to be strong for Emily. She still needs me. St. Mary's Church, the place where Jennifer was baptized, attended Sunday school, and had her wedding today, it became the place for her final journey. The church is decorated with white flowers, and a photo of Jennifer's smiling face is placed in front of the altar. As mourners in black attire quietly take their seats, I held Emily's small hand tightly. She doesn't seem to fully understand, yet that Mommy won't be coming back forever. "Grandma, when will Mommy wake up?" Emily asks in a small voice. I'm at a loss for words and can only hold Emily close. Pastor Brown solemnly begins the service. He speaks about Jennifer's life, her love, and the impact she had on many people. Sobs can be heard from among the mourners. As the service reaches its midpoint, Emily suddenly leans forward. Her eyes seem to be looking at something far away. "Grandma," Emily whispers, "Mommy's here." I look back at my granddaughter in surprise. "Emily, what did you say?" "Mommy's over there." Emily points towards the altar. "Mommy's talking to me." My heart starts pounding like a drum. Emily had always been a bit different. Sometimes she would say she could see things that others couldn't. But could it be Mommy saying? Emily continues to look at her tummy. I caught my breath. Jennifer's tummy? What could be there? "Emily, how does Mommy look?" I asked with a trembling voice. "Mommy looks sad," Emily answers. but she's trying to tell us something important. At that moment, the pastor's voice echoed, bringing us back to reality, but Emily's words kept ringing in my head. Jennifer's tummy? What could be there? As the funeral ended and the mourners started to leave, my mind was buzzing with Emily's words. Mommy says to look at her tummy. Those words keep echoing in my head. Mrs. Wilson, are you all right? Jim Foster from the funeral home gently called out to me. He's been an acquaintance for 30 years, seeing off many of the town's people on their final journey. Jim, I have a request, I said with determination. Could you let me see Jennifer one more time? Jim looked a bit surprised, but quickly showed understanding. Of course, but are you prepared? It might be a difficult experience. I nodded. I'm ready for Emily's sake and for Jennifer's. Led by Jim, we entered a quiet room. There lay Jennifer's body covered with a white cloth. As Jim carefully removed the cloth, Jennifer's face appeared, a peaceful expression as if she were just sleeping. Jim, could you show me her stomach area too? I asked with a trembling voice. Jim silently complied and exposed Jennifer's abdomen. There's something unusual caught my eye. On the right side of her abdomen was a large bruise of an unnatural shape. Purple-black spots spread out like some kind of mark. I was at a loss for words. Mrs. Wilson, this. Jim also seemed confused, searching for words. Honestly, I've never seen a bruise like this before. In my head, various questions were swirling. What is this bruise? How long has it been there? Why didn't anyone notice? And most importantly, is this related to Jennifer's death? Jim, could you take a picture of this? I said, steeling my resolve. Jim has hesitated a little, but seeing my serious expression, quietly nodded. While he carefully took photos with his cell phone, I held Jennifer's cold hand. I'm sorry, Jennifer, but I need to know the truth for you and for Emily. Before leaving the room, I gently kissed Jennifer's cheek one last time. Rest in peace, Mom will uncover the truth. A few days after the funeral, I started sorting through Jennifer's belongings. Every time I enter her room, I feel a tightness in my chest. It's as if her scent still lingers in the room. As I was packing clothes and most into boxes one by one, I found a small box hidden behind the bookshelf. When I opened it, inside was Jennifer's diary. The cover reads, "My secret only." I hesitated whether I should open the diary, but I told myself it was necessary to know the truth. When I opened the first page, a world I had never imagined unfolded before me. He hit me again today, but I can't tell anyone. I have to endure for Emily's sake. My stomach still hurts from being kicked, but I can't go to the hospital. I'm afraid of being questioned. I feel like he's putting something in my food, but I have no proof. Maybe I'm just being paranoid. With each line I read, my heart filled with pain and anger. Jennifer had been abused by her husband Robert for years, and she couldn't ask anyone for help. After finishing the diary, I contacted Sarah, Jennifer's best friend. She might know something. Martha. Sarah hesitated on the phone before starting to speak. Actually, Jennifer had confided in me, but she made me promise not to tell anyone. Sarah's testimony corroborated the contents of the diary: Robert's violence, mental abuse, and recently suspicious behavior regarding food. Recently, Jennifer said that the food tastes strange, Sarah said tearfully. But Robert was right there, so I couldn't ask for details. Hearing this, something clicked in my mind. The unnatural bruise, the unexplained illness, and the change in food taste, everything seemed to point to one terrible truth. Sarah, thank you, I said, taking a deep breath. Don't blame yourself for not being able to help Jennifer. Now is the time to reveal the truth. After hanging up the phone, I headed to Emily's room with a determined feeling. She was sitting on the floor playing with her dolls. Emily, I gently called out. Grandma needs to do something important for Mommy. Will you help? Emily looked up at me with big eyes and quietly nodded. Yes, Grandma, if it's for Mommy. At that moment, I was desperate to hold back my tears. Jennifer's anguish, Emily's innocence, and the terrible truth that needed to be uncovered, it all weighs heavily on my shoulders. But there's no turning back. For my daughter's sake and for my granddaughter's future, I chose the path of pursuing the truth. With Jennifer's diary and her friend's testimony in hand, I decided to consult with the local police. At first, the detective was skeptical, but when I showed him the evidence, he listened earnestly. Mrs. Wilson, this is a serious accusation, Detective Johnson said with a furrowed brow. We'll need to conduct a thorough investigation, but can we count on your cooperation? I agreed without hesitation. From that day on, my days were spent liaising with the police and gathering evidence. Jennifer's medical records, her daily items, and even samples of her hair became subjects of investigation. Emily spent more time at my house, her grandmother's, while Robert remained alone at home. He seemed to be immersing himself in work after his wife's death. About a week into the investigation, I received a call from Detective Johnson. "Mrs. Wilson, we've made an important discovery." His voice was filled with tension. Traces of arsenic were detected in Jennifer's hair. At those words, all strength left my body. Arsenic poison? My beloved daughter had been slowly poisoned. I stammered. "Yes, it's evidence of long-term poison administration," Detective Johnson continued quietly. "Furthermore, there's a report of arsenic compounds missing from the chemical storage at Robert Wilson's workplace. Robert worked for a chemical company. He had easy access to poison." "Why?" I asked, holding back tears. "Why would he do such a thing?" "We don't fully understand the motive yet." Detective Johnson chose his words carefully. "But we've discovered that a high-value life insurance policy was taken out on Jennifer in Robert Wilson's name." At that moment, something broke inside me. To kill his own wife, Emily's mother, in such a cruel way for money, Robert, is? I asked with a shaking voice. "Currently under interrogation," Detective Johnson answered. "We plan to request an arrest warrant as soon as we have sufficient evidence." After hanging up the phone, I just sat there for a long time. Sadness, anger, and regret washed over me. If only I had noticed earlier, could I have saved Jennifer? Such thoughts tormented me. However, there's still work to be done. For Emily's sake and for Jennifer's justice, I must face this truth. As the police investigation progressed, I started thinking more about Emily's mysterious ability that day at the funeral. When Emily said she saw Jennifer, and the words about looking at her stomach, it might not have been just a child's imagination. "Emily," one day, I gently spoke to my granddaughter. "Can you tell me more about Mommy?" Emily looked up at me with her big eyes, thought for a moment, and then started speaking. "Mommy comes sometimes at night," she said in a quiet voice. "She looks sad, but she's trying to tell us something important." "What kind of things?" I asked, holding my breath. "About Mommy's ring," Emily continued, "the shiny ring, but she says it's not there now." I leaned forward involuntarily. Jennifer's wedding ring, indeed. She wasn't wearing it when she passed away. "Emily, did Mommy say where the ring is?" Emily thought for a moment. Under the big tree in the garden, I think." The moment I heard those words, my heart started racing. "There's a big oak tree in the backyard of Jennifer's house. Could it be?" That night, I contacted Detective Johnson. I relayed Emily's words and asked for permission to search the garden. Honestly believing a child's words, Detective Johnson hesitated, but ultimately agreed. The next day, under police supervision, we dug at the base of the open tree, and from the earth a small box emerged. When we opened the box, inside was Jennifer's wedding ring, and surprisingly, there was also a note written in Robert's handwriting: "The perfect crime no one will notice." At that moment, we had obtained decisive evidence. After discovering the wedding ring and note, thanks to Emily's mysterious ability, I started paying even more attention to Emily's words. Every night before bed, I set aside time to talk quietly with Emily. "Emily, did Mommy say anything today?" I gently ask. Emily answers with a serious expression. "Mommy said to look inside the big vase in the kitchen." I caught my breath. That vase was a wedding gift Jennifer had received. The next morning, under police supervision, we examined the vase. Hidden at the bottom was a small plastic bag. It contained a white powder. Later tests revealed that the powder was an arsenic compound. On another day, Emily said this: "Mommy says there's a secret in Daddy's computer." Based on this information, the police conducted a detailed investigation of Robert's computer. There, they found search history related to the effects of poisons and methods of administration. Each of Emily's words led to important evidence. By believing in her ability and acting cautiously, we were getting closer to the truth. Sometimes Emily's words didn't directly lead to evidence. There were childlike imaginations mixed in, like, "Mommy was flying in the sky," or "she was talking to the stars." However, I continued to listen carefully, not to miss the fragments of truth within them. Emily's ability is not just a child's imagination, it's a special connection with her deceased mother. By believing in and respecting it, we were proceeding on the path to justice. Based on the evidence gathered with Emily's help, the police initiated a more formal investigation. A special investigation team was formed centered around Detective Johnson. "Mrs. Wilson, thank you for providing such valuable information," Detective Johnson said with a serious expression. "We'll conduct a more detailed investigation based on this evidence." The police began to examine Jennifer's medical records from the hospital she had been visiting in detail. In this process, the photo of the abdominal bruise played a crucial role. Dr. Smith, a toxicology specialist from the local general hospital, agreed to cooperate with the investigation. The shape and color of this bruise are typical symptoms of chronic arsenic poisoning, he pointed out. Furthermore, a detailed analysis of Jennifer's hair samples clearly showed arsenic accumulation over the past several months. This is not accidental poisoning. It can only be explained by planned administration, Dr. Smith asserted. The police extended their investigation to the chemical company where Robert worked. With the company's cooperation, they thoroughly investigated inventory records of chemicals and access logs. As a result, it was discovered that Robert had been accessing the chemical storage containing arsenic compounds with unusual frequency. Considering all this evidence, the possibility of planned poisoning by Robert Wilson is extremely high, Detective Johnson stated in the interim investigation report. Every time I heard about the progress of these investigations, sadness and anger welled up inside me. At the same time, I felt a sense of relief that we were getting closer to the truth. Jennifer, it's almost time, I whispered in my heart. The truth about what was done to you is about to come to light. Once sufficient evidence was gathered, the police finally moved to arrest Robert Wilson. When I saw him being arrested in front of his house as he was about to leave for work on the news, complex emotions swirled within me. After the arrest, Robert initially denied all charges. However, faced with the police's persistent questioning and overwhelming evidence, he gradually began to break down. When the trial began, the whole town was in an uproar. Many media outlets flocked to cover the shocking incident that occurred in this small town. The prosecution presented evidence of chronic arsenic poisoning, records of Robert's unnatural behavior, and the decisive evidence of the note, one after another. The defense tried to cast doubt on the credibility of the evidence, but their arguments were overturned by expert testimony. At the climax of the trial, Robert finally admitted his guilt. According to his confession, he was burdened with enormous debt and was aiming for a quick reversal of fortune with Jennifer's life insurance money. Ultimately, Robert was sentenced to life imprisonment for first-degree murder. When the verdict was announced, a murmur arose from the people gathered in the courtroom. While harboring complex feelings, I felt that finally my daughter's soul could rest in peace. After the trial ended and the truth came to light, life for Emily and me changed dramatically. Many people extended their sympathy and support to us. The church community, in particular, became a powerful source of support. After Sunday Mass, many people would approach us bringing meals or helping to take care of Emily. "Martha, thank you for your courage," Mary, the leader of the church women's group, said to me. "Your actions have made our town safer." At Emily's school, 2 teachers and other parents showed special consideration. The school counselor meets regularly, with Emily working to care for her emotional well-being. On the other hand, this incident has prompted the entire town to turn its attention to the issues of domestic violence and abuse-related. Workshops and support groups have been launched at the local community center. "We have learned a lot from Mrs. Wilson and little Emily's experience," the mayor stated at a press conference. "From now on, we will work as a whole community to prevent such tragedies from happening again." Emily is gradually regaining her brightness. Her words about seeing mommy have decreased, but occasionally she looks up at the sky and smiles. "I myself have found a new mission while dealing with my grief. I've started volunteering with a local support group for domestic violence victims, trying to use my experience to help those who are suffering." Jennifer is no longer here, but her presence lives on in us and in this town. Her tragic fate has changed the lives of many people and has become a step towards a better society. A year has passed since then. Emily has started elementary school and is slowly getting used to her new life. The bond between us two has grown even stronger through this ordeal. On the anniversary of Jennifer's death, Emily and I visit her grave. Together, we offer flowers and quietly speak to her. "Jennifer, your courage continues to live in the hearts of many people." We have established a fund in Jennifer's name. The Jennifer Memorial Fund works to support domestic violence victims and educate children about preventing abuse. Emily is also participating in activities in her own way. She started a kindness club at school, spreading the importance of compassion with her friends. "Grandma, do you think mommy is watching us?" Emily asked one day. "Yes, I'm sure she is," I answered gently, "and she must be very proud." This journey that began with a sad event has now become a beacon of hope. Jennifer's memory lives on through our activities, illuminating the life of many people. From now on, I want to continue sowing seeds of love and compassion together with Emily that should be the best gift for Jennifer. Story 5. My granddaughter's last words were, "See you, Grandma." A tragic accident claimed her life that same day. 3 years later, at her grave, I heard, "It's been a while," and turned to see her. My daughter is seriously injured and in critical condition. I suddenly received a call from my son. I was on an overseas trip, but upon learning about my granddaughter's emergency, I immediately returned home. However, it was already too late, and I didn't make it in time. My 5-year-old granddaughter had passed away and was placed in a small urn. A year later, when I went to visit the grave, I saw a little girl praying there. To my surprise, it was my granddaughter who was supposed to have died. She saw me and happily ran towards me. While doubting my eyes, I hugged her tightly. Then I heard the terrifying truth I had been unaware of all this time, and the flames of revenge were ignited within me. I'm Lily, 63 years old. My husband has already passed away, and I live alone. My 40-year-old son and his wife have a 4-year-old girl and a 3-year-old boy, and they lived about a 3-hour drive from my house. My son, Tyler, and his wife, Isabella, would visit my house with their children a few times a year. These were precious and joyful times for me. But there was something that concerned me a little. It was about my granddaughter, Sophia. Somehow, I couldn't shake the feeling that she was being treated differently from her brother, Jacob. I first noticed this one day when my son and his wife were staying overnight. Tyler and Isabella took only Jacob shopping, saying they were going to buy him toys. After they left, Sophia looked at me with her adorable eyes and said, "Grandma, I'm hungry." "Oh, I'm sorry I didn't notice. I'll make something for you right away." I grabbed a frying pan and made her some pancakes, which she had previously said were delicious. When I put them on a plate and added butter and syrup, Sophia beamed with a big smile. "Wow, it smells so good. Be careful not to burn yourself, sweetie." "Okay, thank you, Grandma." As I cut the pancakes into bite-sized pieces for her, Sophia's eyes sparkled as she stuffed her mouth full. Watching her, I felt a sense of healing. Sophia said, "It's so fluffy and delicious," while gulling down her milk. Just then, I heard the front door open and heavy footsteps echoing. "Sophia, why are you the only one eating? Give that to Jacob. I'm about to make some for him too. Don't say things like that." As I was about to go to the kitchen, Tyler abruptly took the pancakes away from Sophia and fed them to Jacob. Seeing this, Sophia's face fell, and she hung her head dejectedly. Feeling sorry for Sophia, I once again said I'll make new ones for Jacob, but Tyler refused, saying, "There's no need for that. There's no need to take food away from her when she's still eating. Sophia doesn't eat much, right? You're full, aren't you?" Sophia had just started eating the pancakes, so there was no way she could be full. I told Tyler this, but he didn't seem to be listening to me at all. "Mother-in-law, please don't worry about it. We're having trouble with Sophia always wanting food, even though she hardly eats anything. It's just a waste to give her food." At that moment, I felt something odd about the cold look Isabella gave Sophia despite her being her own daughter. Seeing Sophia's sad face, I thought she might be unable to speak up, so I argued with them that can't be true, but they wouldn't listen to me. Just then, I felt a tug on the hem of my apron. When I looked down, Sophia was signaling to me with her small hand, looking at me with an expression that seemed to want to say something. "I'm going to get some drinks, Sophia. Would you like to help me?" She nodded, and when we went to the kitchen together, Sophia whispered, "It's okay, it always happens. I'm the big sister, so I give it to Jacob." With an unsettled feeling, I was arranging drinks on the table while Sophia was eagerly helping me. "Sophia, stop lying about being hungry when you're not. Now that you have a little brother, you need to act more like a big sister." As Sophia apologized with a dejected "I'm sorry" after being scolded by her parents, my heart ached, and when I looked closely, I saw Sophia quietly rubbing her stomach. She must have still been hungry. Thinking that Sophia wouldn't tell me the truth if I asked her about the situation right there, I gently took her hand. "When we were alone, if there's anything you can tell me, I won't tell your mom and dad. I feel lonely because they only dote on Jacob." Sophia let slip her true feelings. I squeezed her hand tightly and said softly, "You can rely on me." Sophia smiled happily and hugged me. "Such a small child is hurting like this. I have to do something about it." As I observed, I noticed that my son and his wife hardly spoke to Sophia, and she was playing by herself. In contrast, they noted excessively on Jacob. Thinking this couldn't continue, I sat down with them after the children had gone to sleep and had a serious talk. However, they remained adamant, saying, "That's just Sophia's imagination. We're raising them without favoritism in the first place. It's only natural that things changed dramatically for her when her brother was born after being treated like a princess until then. That's right, Sophia is the older sister, so she needs to be a little more patient." While there was some logic to what they were saying, the fact remained that a small child was being hurt. "I won't forgive you if you continue to make Sophia suffer like this. Even though we live apart, I'll be keeping a close eye on you." I drove this point home to them, but they brushed me off, saying, "Don't worry about it. Enjoy your trip. Don't forget to bring us souvenirs." The next day, they quickly packed up and left after breakfast. I need to do something about this, I'm worried. While considering what I could do, I went on a planned overseas trip with my friend. When I mentioned the situation to a friend who was traveling with me, I got an idea that I planned to implement when I returned home. On the third day of the trip, while we were having a meal, I suddenly received a call from Tyler. "Sophia has been seriously injured." What's her condition? Tell me what you know." Apparently, Sophia had fallen from a jungle gym, hit her head hard, and was covered in blood. She was unconscious and had been taken to the emergency room, where they said her life was in danger. I couldn't sit still and told my friends about the situation, then booked a return flight ticket. It wasn't possible to leave that day, so I took a flight the next day. During that time, I tried to contact Tyler, but couldn't get through, so I spent the time anxiously waiting. When I called my son to go directly to the hospital where Sophia had been taken from the airport, he spoke in a strained voice. "I'm sorry I couldn't answer your calls all this time. Sophia didn't make it. She passed away shortly after I called you. Her injuries were so severe that we've already held the funeral and cremated her." As I was at a loss for words, my son sent me a photo of a small ear. "Sophia, how did this happen?" After crying silently in the airport lobby for a while, I told Tyler I was coming to his house, but he hesitated, saying, "That's a bit, it was so sudden, and Isabel is still in shock, so could you please leave us alone for now?" I understood that Isabella must be extremely shocked after losing her precious daughter. Understanding those feelings, I reluctantly trudged home with a heavy heart. I placed a photo of Sophia in the living room as the feeling that I would never see her again overwhelmed me. I couldn't stop my tears. At that time, I noticed that something I had ordered had arrived in the mailbox, but thinking there was no use for it now, I carelessly put it in the bag I always use. Sometime later, when I called my son, I was told that they had interred Sophia's remains in the same grave where my husband rests. "Well, why didn't you tell me?" Isabella said she absolutely didn't want to see you. "Remember when we last met, you suspected her of favoring only Jacob. Since then, he said she had been unable to recover from her wounded heart. I've done something terrible to her. Can't you help me make amends? I want to apologize properly." "No, just leave us alone now. I don't like you prying into our affairs either." In the end, I wasn't allowed to go to my son's house, and they even asked me not to visit the grave because it would be painful to run into you there by chance. Then Tyler and Isabella said they couldn't bear to live in the place where they lost Sophia and moved to a different area, and we eventually became estranged, and so I spent my days crushed by sadness and regretting my words. A year later, on the anniversary of Sophia's death, I decided to visit the grave. Surely, I wouldn't run into Tyler or Isabella if I went in the evening. As I headed to the grave with white flowers, I saw a small child crouching and praying in front of our family grave. Wondering who it could be, I called out hello. When the child turned around, I froze in surprise. It was Sophia, who was supposed to have died. She saw me and happily ran towards me with a smile. While doubting my eyes, I instinctively hugged her tightly, feeling her warm skin as my mind went into confusion. "Grandma, were you alive?" "Yes, of course." As I listened to Sophia say these strange things, a terrible truth came to light. When I checked the gravestone, Sophia's name wasn't engraved on it. What a cruel thing to do. I'll never forgive them. They'd better be prepared. Anger and a desire for revenge began to boil inside me. I remembered something I had been carrying around and set up a certain device, then parted ways with Sophia. There, I will protect Sophia's smile no matter what. 30 minutes later, I visited my son's house, where he said they had moved. I was certain they were inside, but even though I rang the doorbell, there was no answer. They were probably pretending not to be home. Unable to wait even a second longer, I flung open the front door with all my might. Tyler and Isabella inside jumped in surprise when they saw me. "Don't pretend you're not here. How did you open the front door?" "It wasn't locked in the first place. Sophia, Grandma's here. You can come out now." What are you talking about? I told you she's gone. As I called out Sophia's name loud enough to echo through the house, she came running with her cute little footsteps. I quickly moved to avoid being stopped by my son and held Sophia tightly in my arms. Seeing this, my son and his wife opened their eyes wide, seemingly unable to speak. I looked at them coldly with a stern face. I thought Sophia had passed away exactly a year ago, so why is she here? Realizing they couldn't cover it up anymore, Tyler made an unbelievable statement. We pretended Sophia had left this world because it was troublesome to have you interfering with how we raise our children. You two are the worst. It's your fault. We were raising Sophia with love, but you accused us of only doting on Jacob. That's right, it was so painful to be suspected like that for no reason. You're really inconsiderate barging into someone's house like this. At first the two of them were taken aback, but gradually they began to strongly accuse me. I couldn't back down now, so I showed them the photo I had taken at the grave. It showed Sophia in tattered clothes, emaciated and covered in bruises. Those clothes are the same ones Sophia is wearing now. Don't you even change her clothes when they get dirty? Sophia runs around outside, so her clothes get torn quickly. Besides, she doesn't eat much, and those bruises are from when she falls on her own. I couldn't believe it was just from falling given the odd locations of the bruises. Realizing this was going nowhere, I played an audio recording for them. In it, you could hear my son and his wife berating Sophia. Sophia, you're a nuisance. If you hadn't been looking out the window, this wouldn't have happened. It makes me sick. This is bad enough, but you even plan to send her to the next world. I can't believe you're my son. You two are so cruel. How did you record our conversation? They seemed surprised by the clear audio quality, so I explained that I had hidden a listening device in the pouch Sophia was carrying. Moreover, I had asked Sophia to deliberately leave that pouch in the living room. Actually, when I went on a trip with my friends a year ago, they taught me this method, so I had ordered the device online so I could implement it as soon as I returned home. However, when I heard the news that Sophia had died, I left it and used in my bag. I had completely forgotten about it, but by chance when I came to visit the grave, Sophia and her family had come to a nearby park. At first they were going to leave Sophia at home alone and go on a picnic with just the three of them, but when they got into the car, a neighbor happened to pass by and said it's nice to go out as a family, but is she staying home alone, pointing at Sophia, who was peeking out the window, so they had no choice but to bring Sophia along. However, as usual, only Jacob received attention, while Sophia was left alone. Sophia had been playing by herself for a while, but as she explored here and there, she ended up at the grave she had visited before. The clever Sophia remembered this place and was praying there. So you met at that grave? Yes, that's when I planted the listening device and followed you here. Don't play dirty tricks. Oh my, is that something? Someone who pretended to send Sophia to the next world and even taught this child that I had passed away can say. My son and his wife had taught Sophia that grandma has died, so that she and I wouldn't meet. What kind of people are they? Perhaps they didn't expect to be found out to this extent, but they seemed unable to say a word. As I hit a sore spot, they looked awkward for a moment, but soon they seemed to remember something and approached me. How dare you eavesdrop on other people's conversations? We'll sue you. Go ahead if you want, but just eavesdropping alone isn't punishable by law. Besides, I did it to protect my precious granddaughter, so there's no problem. When I refuted them confidently, Isabella, who had been silent until then, approached Sophia. Sophia, thinking she might do something to her, shrank back and started trembling. I can tell how you usually treat her just by looking at her reaction. Stop making false accusations. I'm really going to call the police. Go ahead, call them right now, but it won't be me who gets arrested. It'll be you too. As I hugged Sophia tightly and glared at them, they suddenly turned pale. When I pressed them about why they had done such a terrible thing, Tyler reluctantly opened his mouth. Girls are useless, aren't they? They'll just get married and go to someone else's family, while boys can become heirs. If that's such a ridiculous reason, what are those documents on the table? My son tried to hide them with a startled look, but I quickly snatched them away before he could. Looking inside, I found an insurance policy for children with marks next to the amounts payable in case of death or severe after effects. They had even been aiming for Sophia's life insurance money. This is just in case of an emergency. Before I came into this house, you were planning to send Sophia to the next world, weren't you? Actually, there was more to this story. They were laughing and talking about how even if they failed, they would still get money if Sophia became disabled. I can't leave these children with you. Who knows what you might do? Isabella, did you call the police? If not, I'll contact them. Wait, please, Mom, calm down. If we get involved with the police, it's Sophia and Jacob who will suffer. Is that what you want? Thinking they didn't understand at all, I held hands with my grandchildren and turned to face them. Then I suggested, let's ask them, and my son and his wife agreed, saying that's a good idea. I don't want a papa and mama who won't even feed me. I want to be with grandma. Hearing these words, Tyler and Isabella simultaneously snorted, saying, see, Sophia isn't cute. Next, I got down to Jacob's eye level and said, tell me what you're thinking. Anything is fine. Jacob said, I don't like papa and mama either because they're mean to Sophia. Tyler and Isabella looked dumbfounded. It was revealed that they had also occasionally given Jacob harsh punishments under the guise of discipline. How could they have treated such young children in a way that made them say they were unwanted? Actually, when I reunited with Sophia at the grave, I had already heard about this. Jacob was a kind child, and whenever Sophia was scolded by their parents and denied meal, he would secretly bring her bread to eat. Despite being so young, the siblings had a strong bond, which reassured me. It's settled, then Sophia, Jacob, from now on, let's live together. The children's expressions immediately brightened, and they nodded vigorously. Wait a minute, what's going to happen to us first? I suppose it'll be a holding cell, after that perhaps a life surrounded by high walls. Anyway, make sure you reflect deeply on what you've done. As I took the hands of my dear grandchildren and headed towards the front door, Tyler and Isabella bowed their heads, repeatedly begging for forgiveness. They would probably just repeat the same behavior again. I stopped for a moment and looked Tyler and Isabella straight in the eyes. I'll have others judge what you've done. Be prepared. They clung to me crying, but there was no way I would believe their excuses. Furthermore, thinking it was impossible to convince me, they kept telling Sophia and Jacob, please forgive Papa and Mama. When Sophia and Jacob said, we hate Papa and Mama, don't touch us, Tyler and Isabella became dazed on the spot. After that, I filed a police report and submitted the photographic and audio evidence. My son and his wife were asked to come in for voluntary questioning, and it was determined that they had been causing daily suffering to their children. They ended up spending some time in prison. I decided to officially adopt Sophia and Jacob as my own children. Actually, it was Sophia who had quietly unlocked the front door of their house that day when I asked her to do so at the grave. The clever Sophia carried out the request perfectly. That's why I was able to rescue them from those evil hands, and I truly feel that now. Since then, Sophia has had a hearty appetite, returned to a healthy weight, and plays energetically every day. Jacob spends each day smiling and having fun with Sophia. I told the two of them, if you ever want to see Papa and Mama, just let me know, but they don't seem to have any desire to do so at all. I wonder how Tyler and Isabella raised them. I vowed to keep working hard so that my grandchildren can always wear smiles on their faces.